A long haul trip takes planning. A long haul trip with kids takes even more planning. And a long haul trip with kids with complex medical needs is a tactical mission. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. If you are new here and this is the first video of mine that you've come across, hi, I am Chrissy and I am a mum of 3. And we as a family, including my stepson, so that makes 4 children, are travelling to Orlando from the UK in April. Now, 2 of my children do have additional needs. My son Zachary has autism and my daughter Avery has very complex medical needs. She has HIE, which is a hypoxic brain injury caused shortly after birth. She also has subsequent cerebral palsy, dystonia. She is G-tube fed. There is a long list of Avery's medical conditions. I wanted to make this video to share exactly what we've done in terms of planning and preparation to make sure the entire trip can run as smoothly as it possibly can in terms of Avery, my daughter's medical needs. This is just to make sure that she is 100% safe, she has everything she needs, and again, just to make sure the trip runs nice and smooth because we all want to enjoy ourselves. Now, I know that a long haul trip with medically compromised children can sound overwhelming and you may even find this video a little bit overwhelming, but I just wanted to prove to you that it can be done and that just because you are a special needs family, just because you have children who have medically complex needs, no one has to sacrifice, no one has to miss out. It can be done and it can be done with everyone involved. No one has to miss out or sacrifice. Now, for us, flying from Heathrow to Orlando International, I believe is around a 9-hour flight, give or take. Neither me or my husband have ever flown long haul and none of our children have ever flown long haul. They have all flown, which was very good practice because we know what they are all like on planes, but never long haul. So it is a little bit daunting for us, but I'm feeling comfortable and confident in what I've prepared, what I've planned to make sure it's all going to run smoothly. Now, I will say it does take a fair bit of planning. I mean, any of you that have travelled to Orlando from the UK and done a big kind of Disney World theme park trip will know it takes a fair bit of planning anyway, but even more so when you have medically complex children, because there's a lot of stuff that you wouldn't need to do that you really do need to do in this case. So I think I'm going to try and run through what we've done sort of step by step to make it easier to follow. And the first thing, which isn't just important if you have medically complex children, it is important in general when you're traveling, and that is travel insurance. Now, travel insurance doesn't really have to be that expensive and usually it's not, but when you start adding a long list of medical complications, the price can rack up. The 2 companies that I have used before, we also use the same companies when we travel to Paris, are Good To Go Insurance and Stay Sure Insurance. They both provided pretty good policies that covered a lot of different medical expenses in the event that something should go wrong, but then it also covered the usual travel insurance expenses such as lost luggage, cancelled flights, etc, etc. But those are the 2 that I found that were relatively affordable. Now, I'm not going to say completely affordable because it is a little bit more expensive than your standard travel insurance if you are travelling and you don't have any medical needs, but compared to a lot of the policies I was looking at and a lot of the companies I was looking at, these 2 were the most reasonably priced and the best deals I could find. Now, that doesn't say that we wanted to skimp out on the insurance. There were a few that could have been cheaper that I just missed out because the policies weren't good enough. We wanted to make sure Avery is going to be 100% insured, and all of our other children for that matter, but more so Avery, because if anything is going to go wrong in terms of medical, it's most likely going to be her. She does have a G-tube. That there is high risk. That G-tube could fall out, the hole could close over, and we just wanted to make sure we are covered in the event should anything go wrong. And with it being the USA, everything is private, so we needed good insurance that would cover us. Now, I know there are some circumstances where it may be a little bit more difficult to find travel insurance, such as if your child has uncontrolled epilepsy. Avery does not have an epilepsy diagnosis. She has been seizure free for a very, very long time, so that is great. But sometimes you may just struggle to find travel insurance. But what I will say is if you can't get travel insurance in terms of the medical things, you definitely should not be going. You do not want that worry, you do not want that stress, you do not want anything to go wrong and not be insured, because it can cost you thousands for medical treatment. I also researched the closest hospital to where we're going to be staying. So we are going to be staying in Kissimmee in Orlando, and the closest hospital to us is actually Advent Health, which I did check. It does have an emergency care unit and also a I don't know what I'm trying to say here, not an ICU, like a critical care unit. So it has all of the things that Avery would need. I did read a little bit into it. They do have kind of pediatric specialists as well, so I know where to go if something does go wrong, which is definitely another tip. Just check where your nearest hospitals are, just so that if something does go wrong, you're not googling on your phone as to kind of where the nearest hospital is. Of course, I'm talking a non-emergency situation here. If it was an emergency situation, you would call an ambulance, but if it's a case of a G-tube fell out and you either don't have your emergency G-tube kit, or the hole has already closed over because you didn't realise, those kind of problems. So next, and this is something I definitely recommend you taking advantage of if you are travelling with anyone with additional needs or medical needs, and that is book the special assistance with your airline. So we are travelling with Virgin, and straight away I let them know that 2 of our party would require a special assistance booking. Now, special assistance can help in a lot of different ways. For us, we're going to be traveling with an awful lot of stuff, so they can help out with transport around the airport. Not only that, but I don't know about Heathrow, but I'm not going to lie because I've never travelled from Heathrow, but in Gatwick when we flew to Paris, they actually had a separate security section for people with special assistance bookings. I also believe that the same separate security was for families, so people with young children and stuff as well, but it was a much smoother process, much quieter. We had somebody help us with checking our bags. There was a kind of quieter area that we could go and sit at because we had that special assistance booking. And then on our way back into Gatwick, we actually had somebody drive a buggy for us, and we just sat in the buggy and they literally drove us all the way to baggage claim. They drove us through customs, which meant that we weren't standing in the line for an hour, because I have done that. When I went to Crete, the line was massive, and it's definitely a lot less stressful, especially when you have a very tired screaming baby that has been sat on a flight for 9 hours and you just need to get her home and fed. Special assistance doesn't just cover the flight, especially if you have a package booking, which we do. So our car hire, our resort and our flights are all included with Virgin. So our special assistance extends to the car hire and the resort. So I asked if they could ask the resort if we could have a ground floor apartment, and also that we would need a travel cot because Avery is not big enough. Not that she's not big enough for a bed yet, but because she doesn't really have much control over her movements, she needs to be in a travel cot. She would fall out of a bed most likely. So we've requested that, so hopefully that will all get sorted out for us. They have said that that is what they've requested. They can never 100% guarantee. A travel cot, I'm sure they will be able to guarantee, but a ground floor, they can't 100% guarantee, but we have asked, so hopefully that is what will be given. Same with the car hire. Now, we didn't end up really taking advantage of special assistance as such with this. The only thing is we could have asked for a car seat for Avery, but what we've chosen to do instead is take our own, just because we know Avery fits in it okay, we know it's rear facing, we know she's safe in it, and we know it somewhat supports her posture. We don't want to be dealing with a new car seat and if it will work for her when we're supposed to be enjoying our holiday. So for that I did buy a car seat bag just to make sure that didn't get damaged in transit. I did also double check with Virgin that all of the cars with our rental service had ISOFIX in the cars, and apparently they do, so that is good because that is what Avery's car seat uses. The only other thing I've asked for with special assistance, which I am still not 100% sure if we're going to be able to get, because usually it is for babies under 2 that don't have a seat. Avery does have a seat. Is a plain crib. So they do actually do plain cribs. They kind of go not at the front of the plane, but where there is a kind of seat and then nothing but sort of a wall in front. they usually slot there. So I have requested one of those because our flight home is a night flight, and Avery doesn't have very good head control. She can't hold her head up, especially if she's sleeping, so there is absolutely no way she's going to be able to sleep safely sat up. She will end up constricting her airways. I wouldn't be able to sleep because I'd have to hold her the whole time basically, and like I said, overnight flight, we'll all be very tired, and we do have a 5-hour drive once we actually get to Heathrow back home. So that's what I've asked for. I'm still waiting to hear back, fingers crossed, but definitely check with your airline because that is something that may be available to you if you have a smaller child or baby. Now the next thing I did, and this is probably the most important thing, is I liaised with all of Avery's medical professionals. I keep talking about Avery in particular because Zach, he has autism. He's in some aspects high functioning in terms of the trip, apart from sort of sensory issues and getting overwhelmed. In terms of kind of physical disabilities, he doesn't have any, so we didn't really need too much help with Zach. So I spoke to all of Avery's professionals, literally everyone involved, just so that they all know that from this date to this date we're going to be out of the country. This kind of just puts us on their radar in case I call, because if I call then they know something is likely to be wrong because we're on holiday. If I'm calling them when we're on holiday, something's up, they need to answer the call, and hopefully they will be able to help us. They're obviously limited in what they can do when we are that many miles apart, but they did all need to know that we were going to be out of the country, not just to know, but for other reasons, which I will get to in just a minute. So next I'm going to talk about the flight in particular. Now Avery does have her own seat, like I said, but you put Avery in a plane seat and there is absolutely no way she's going to be able to sit straight in it. She would just flop over to the side or she would flop forward. It's just not got any support, not enough support for her anyway. So what we have decided to take is our Firefly GoTo Seat. Now this is designed as a postural support to go inside certain buggies, and we've used it in a shopping trolley. We've used this in a baby swing seat at the park. You can strap it to chairs at dinner tables, but this is within the kind of size requirement for the seat. So this will fit in the plane seat, and then I can strap this to the plane seat and it will just close up like this with a 5-point harness, and this will kind of help her posture a little bit. Not completely, especially for takeoff and landing, because the seat does have to be upright. Once the seat can recline, she'll be perfectly fine. But when the seat is upright, she may still struggle with a little bit of head control. If that is the case and her head is flopping and she is struggling to keep it up because she's tired or whatever reason, we are also taking this. This is Avery's head support, so she doesn't use this all the time. We mostly use it when we're trying to focus her energy into something else other than keeping her head up. So this just goes around her neck like that, and then it clips into place. I can't put it on my neck because it's too tight, but it fits Avery really well. Now this is tried and tested. It doesn't hurt her, it doesn't constrict her at all. It literally just gives her head somewhere to rest. So this is going to be really handy for takeoff and landing. The other thing we've had to factor in is obviously keeping her entertained. It is a very long time. The boys all have their switches and they can watch whatever is on the TV screens, and they will have colouring and activities and food. They will have plenty to keep them occupied. Avery, on the other hand, she is G-tube fed, so we don't take up any time by actually physically feeding her orally. She doesn't really play so well. She definitely doesn't play independently. So I needed to find things that would keep her somewhat occupied, just so that there can be short breaks of time where I don't need to be holding her and rocking her, because 9 hours is a really long time. And although my mum and my dad and my husband are all going to be on the flight, predominantly she will be with me because she is sat with me, and my husband's doing all the driving, so he needs to rest. My dad is going to be driving, so he needs to rest. And my mum, she has a problem with a nerve in her neck and arm at the moment, so she can't hold Avery for long periods of time because it hurts her. So what I am taking is my iPad, and I am downloading all of Avery's tried and true favourites. Frozen 1 and 2, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 1 and 2, Teletubbies, something special, her CBeebies favourites, all of that is going to be on here if hopefully, please, I can fit it on there, and that will be a good few hours of entertainment for her. I have also bought her a pair of toddler safe headphones. Normal headphones are no good for a toddler, they are far too loud. These ones will plug into my iPad and they're perfectly safe for her. I have tried these on her, she tolerates them really well. And then I'll also be taking my little adapter for the USB, not USB, the aux point, so that it fits into the charger point of my iPad. So that for the most part should keep Avery entertained. In between that I will just kind of be holding her and playing with her, and hopefully I'll get the chance to kind of get up into the aisle and walk around with her a little bit. I will also be taking a few of her favourite small toys as well, just to give her a little bit of stimulation. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is Avery's meds, and this is where I got the most stressed. This is where I was the most nervous, and that is because Avery takes a lot of medication and every country has different rules on medication, and my biggest fear is that we will get to the US side and we will be turned away at customs because they won't allow some of Avery's meds. And for Avery it is not a case of okay, we'll just do without it. If she had to abruptly stop any of these medications, she would have some serious side effects, and it just isn't an option. We would literally have to turn around and come straight back. So I've done everything within my power to make sure that that doesn't happen. The first thing I did was try and contact the US Embassy, TSA, all of the, you know, the right channels that you're supposed to go through. I'm not gonna lie, none of them were very helpful. They all kind of passed me on to one of the other companies that I'd already spoken to. Companies isn't the right word, organisations. So they weren't the most helpful, but as a rule, what I kind of got from everyone, if it's going to be allowed in any way at all, then you need to have a doctor's note, and they need to be in their original packaging. So obviously we are taking all of the original packaging. I have also spoken to Avery's community nurse and also her paediatrician, who have both written letters just to say, these are the conditions she has, these are the medications she has, she can't stop these medications, she needs them. So I've done everything I can do, and what I will say is on the bottles, just make sure that they are all labelled. They do have the prescription label on them so that they say who they're for, because I think they can be a little bit funny about that. So that is what we are doing. I've also had Avery's dietitian write up a separate letter for her kind of feed and her G-tube supplies, just to make sure all of that is allowed through as well. I'd say if you take anything away from this video, then 100% just make sure you have lots of letters just proving that what you have is what it's for. That being said, when we went to Paris, we had absolutely no issues with Avery's medication. We didn't need to pull out a doctor's note once. They put it through their kind of little scanning machine and sent us on our way. So that was a bit reassuring, but I feel like America is just a completely different ball game. The next challenge I crossed, and again I was also a little bit nervous about, is feed. Now, we went down a lot of different avenues on trying to figure out the feed. Ultimately, we have decided that because we are in such a hot climate, we are going to be taking a bottle per feed. Now, we would never normally do this. Normally, one of our big bottles lasts us 3 feeds, but we have to keep it refrigerated in between uses, otherwise it's no good. We are going to be out most of the day. We are going to be in a very warm climate, and yes, I know in the Disney parks there are first aid centres where you can keep refrigerated specialised feed and medication. We did do that in Paris, but we're not always going to be in Disney. Sometimes we will be in other parks or walking around elsewhere. Not only that, we found that it took up an awful lot of our time when we were in the parks in Paris. We had to keep walking back to the first aid centre every time we needed a med or a feed, so it was a little bit inconvenient. Now, I'm not the kind of person that likes wastage. I don't like wastage, and this is Avery's bottle of feed. Like I said, it normally lasts her 3 feeds. At the moment it is 500 ml. Now, we need to take 64 bottles. So number one, that is a whole lot of wastage, and number two, can you imagine flying with 64 bottles of this? You just wouldn't have any weight left in your luggage for anything else. So our first option was to try and order it through the company that we use on the NHS in America, because I know that they are in America. We get our stock from Abbott. I know that Abbott is in the US as well. However, we were told it wasn't an option. We couldn't order directly from the US and have it shipped to our hotel. So option number 2 was to have the feed shipped out to America, for us to pay for it and ship it out to America. We decided against that for one reason, and that is that we couldn't guarantee anything. So there's no reason to say we couldn't have shipped it out and it had got lost in the mail, or we could have shipped it out and the hotel had refused it, or it just didn't get to the hotel, or we get there and the hotel don't know what we're talking about. The cost we didn't mind. I think it would have cost us around about £100 to send it, so we didn't mind the cost if it meant her food got there, but ultimately we thought it would just be more stress than it was worth. So we are going to be taking it with us in our luggage. So what we have done is arranged with Abbott, our dietitian very kindly arranged it for us. We are going to be getting smaller bottles to take to Orlando. Alongside that, we need to take 64 giving sets. I am going to be taking 4 days worth of syringes, all of the syringes she needs. So however many syringes I would use in a day, whether that be the 60ml syringes for her flushes, 5ml and 3ml for her meds. I'm going to be taking 4 days worth of those, and then I will just rotate and wash them while we were there, because we can wash them with warm soapy water, which we will have because our hotel has a full kitchen, fully stocked kitchen. So not stocked as in stocked with food, but it's a fully equipped kitchen is what I'm trying to say. So that is what I'm doing in terms of all of Avery's feeding supplies. We are going to be taking her mobile backpack. We're not going to be taking the stand. We just think that's going to be more hassle than it's worth. So we're just going to take the mobile feeding backpack, and that way we can use that in the resort and out and about as well. The next thing my husband and I had to think about was the heat and how the heat would affect Avery and her meds and so on. So first of all, Avery herself. Avery, like I said, has been seizure free for a very long time, but she is essentially a sitting duck because she has a brain injury. So we are always on the lookout for seizures, and extreme heat is one of the triggers that could potentially cause a seizure. So it is important to us that we keep Avery very cool. So there are a few steps we're taking. We have bought a stroller fan is what I was trying to say then. And I've talked about it in tons of videos. You've seen it before. If you haven't, then go back and check out some of my summer videos. We were using it throughout the summer to try it out and test it. We also used it in Disneyland Paris. It works great. It gives her a little bit of breeze. It won't do the whole job, I will say. So what I'm also going to be doing is taking a flannel, and then I'm going to wet that and use ice water and just try and keep that cold, keep it over her legs, dab her down with it, try and keep her cool. And then another thing that we're going to do, which was actually my husband's idea, is we're going to, once we're there, grab some of those aerosol water bottles. Normally I would say they're an absolute waste of money, but for Avery we are going to pick some up, just because number one, it's a spray mist, so we're not just going to be kind of squirting splats of water all over her, and it's a metal bottle, so if we keep it in with some ice packs it should stay a bit cooler. And then we will just keep topping her up with that, just making sure that she is staying really, really cool. I mean, luckily Orlando is built for the hot weather, so almost everywhere has aircon. So if we do find that we are getting a little bit too hot, Avery is getting a little bit too hot for our comfort, then we will just duck into a shop and take advantage of the air conditioning. The heat also poses challenges for a lot of Avery's meds, because almost every single one of Avery's meds needs to be kept below 25 degrees. Do you know, every single one of her meds needs to be kept below 25 degrees, and that is Celsius, by the way, not Fahrenheit. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but we are expecting the temperature to be in the high 20s and low 30s while we're there, so we obviously need to make a conscious effort to keep her medications cool. Now, because we're going into the Disneyland parks, we do need to keep her medicines in their bottles and labelled and packaged so that they can see what we're actually taking into the park, especially since there is at least one of her meds that is controlled. So we do need to make sure that they are all labelled, and we will also be taking a doctor's note with us to the parks as well. So we are going to be taking just a small kind of insulated sandwich type lunchbox bag, and we're just going to be loading that up with ice packs. I do have the kind of cubed cool packs, which I will kind of take out of the freezer before we go away, stick them in our suitcase and then pop them in the freezer when we get there. So I will be keeping all of her meds in there to stay cool. Now we don't need them to be fridge cold, we just need them to be below 25 degrees, so that should work fine. I will probably keep her milk in the same bag as well. I do have 2 of them, so if I don't have enough space, I will use both of them. But essentially anything that Avery is going to be consuming, then I will probably keep on ice, just to make sure it doesn't go over the 25 degree mark. And if I feel as though it's not working, then I will end up taking them to the first aid centres, just to keep them in the air conditioning. In terms of Avery's refrigerated meds, because she does have a couple, she has omeprazole and she also has azithromycin, which is an antibiotic. The omeprazole, we have asked for a tablet form, and we use this in Paris. It worked great, so that is what we're going to be using in Orlando. We don't need to worry about tablets being too hot. Her azithromycin luckily is a bottle that we mix ourselves, so she does only have that 3 times a week, so I can just make sure that stays in our fridge once it's mixed in the resort, and I can give it to her in the mornings before we even go out, so that one is fine. The other med that we had an issue with was her levodopa, which is her new med. That one has a very, very short shelf life, so we have asked for a tablet version of that one as well. Avery has already started the tablet version just because it's more convenient day to day, not just Orlando, because the shelf life is longer and we actually know how much we've got, because it's not the easiest med to get hold of. So that is kind of what we figured out in terms of meds. Also, something else to know is normally Disney don't allow glass bottles or glass packaging of any kind. Obviously a lot of Avery's meds are in glass bottles, but again, we're going to take her doctor's note. They can't refuse her meds because she needs them, so we'll take the doctor's note, prove that they are what they are for, and hopefully everything will be fine. There are Facebook groups for parents with special needs children that are taking their children to Disney World. I 100% recommend joining one of those, because I have learned so much, so many tips, and these are all people that have been multiple times. This is the only thing that I can say for me. Yes, I have a lot of experience because I've done all the planning. What I will say is, obviously I haven't actually executed this mission yet, so I will do an update when we get back to let you all know how it went, but as of now we've not actually done it. But these are all the things that we're doing, all the things that we've been advised to do, and I am a research queen, so I have done my research. I know that what I'm doing is right, but I will let you know how smoothly it all ran once we're back. The next thing, and this is something I preach all the time, and not just for when you're away but when you're out of the house in general, is a G-tube emergency kit. I take Avery's G-tube emergency kit with me everywhere. It just has a spare G-tube button, it has some stoma stoppers, it has a little bottle of sealed sterile water. It just has everything I would need in the event that something went wrong with Avery's G-tube. So if the balloon burst, if it fell out, anything like that. And in there I also have an NG tube, just in case the very worst happened, it fell out, it closed over. We know how to administer a G-tube, so if that was the case, then I know there is still a way that she can be fed. Emergency G-tube kit, you have to have one if you have a G-tube fed child or if you are G-tube fed yourself. The other few things that we thought about when going is, number one, making sure we take a few of Avery's home comforts. Now Avery can get very easily distressed, so we just want to make sure she's as comfortable as possible. So for example, her sound machine, she sleeps with it every night, so obviously we're going to take it. Her SATS monitor is also something we're taking. We are going to be taking her travel. It's not a travel SATS monitor, but our other SATS monitor, which we had before. We had the big one. So the one we've got is was actually funded from the Daisy Garland, and it is just a little bit more compact, so we are going to be taking that one. We will test out all of the probes just to make sure they do still pick up an accurate heartbeat and accurate oxygen levels before we go, but we are taking the smaller one. There is absolutely no way that we would have rested without a SATS monitor. She sleeps with one every single night. Little bit of a backstory if you are new. Avery went into a cardiac arrest in the night when she was 3 days old. I woke up and she wasn't breathing, so you can imagine I like to keep a close eye on her heartbeat and oxygen levels when she's asleep. And then the last thing I did was research the accessibility services in each of the parks. So the well-known one in Disney, DAS service, we 100% will be doing that. I don't know if we're going to pre-register yet, because we do have to go through a VPN because we're outside the US. if I end up doing that, I will kind of go into a bit more depth in another video. But whether we do it online in advance, or if we just do it in the parks when we get there, we are registering both Avery and Zach for DAS, because queues for them are just... they're an absolute no-no. Zach especially gets so overwhelmed, and he needs to walk around with him with 2 pieces of Lego all the time in front of his face, because it just kind of keeps him grounded, and he will get incredibly frustrated. He also has bladder problems, so he would probably need a wee halfway through a queue, and if he needs to go, he's got to go. There's no stopping him. Same with Avery. She is G-tube fed. She needs a lot of meds. They're all on particular times. We need the DAS for the kids to actually be able to make our trip enjoyable. In terms of Universal, I believe they have a similar system. You can't pre-register or anything, but once you get there, you can ask to do their... I'm not actually sure what it's called for Universal, but their accessibility service, and I believe if a line is over a certain amount of time, you will get a time to come back and use their fast pass lane, I believe. Now, I doubt we'll benefit that much from it in Universal, because there's a lot of rides that Zach won't go on, and there's a lot of rides that Avery can't go on in Universal, but there is still quite a lot that they do want to do there. So anywhere we go, we will be taking advantage of any accessibility service. At the end of the day, we are a special needs family. I have absolutely no shame in taking what is offered, if it means that our family can actually enjoy a trip the way other families can. The only thing I've not talked about in this video is kind of Avery's buggy setup. So we are using a normal stroller because we don't have an adapted one yet. It is tried and tested. We know she will somewhat tolerate it, but when she's not, I have a baby carrier, so she will go in that when she's really unhappy in the stroller. But I think I will film a kind of what we're taking into the parks type video and how we're organising the stroller in another video, so I won't go into depth on that. Ultimately, our viewpoint as a family is, yes, Avery has complex medical needs, yes, Zachary has additional needs. Does that mean we should have to miss out? Does that mean that we shouldn't get every opportunity that any other family would get? Absolutely not. It takes a little bit more planning, it takes a little bit more hard work. No one's going to do that work for you. You've got to do the research, you've got to do the planning, hopefully with the help of some of your medical professionals, which luckily in my case I did get some help from the medical professionals in terms of the letters and whatnot. But it can be done. We are going to go to Orlando, we are going to have an amazing time, we're not going to have to sacrifice a thing. Avery is going to meet Olaf for a second time, and it is all going to be wonderful. You can do it too if you're a special needs family. You do not have to miss out. You can 100% take your children on holiday. You can go long haul, you can go short haul, go wherever you want. Just do your research, do your planning, and it can be done. And with that said, I'm going to close this video off here because my camera has already cut out on me once already, so I know for a fact I've been talking for way too long. If you do want to see more kind of Disney Orlando planning videos, there will be some coming up in the near future. I am kind of stockpiling them so that I can publish them while we're away, so there isn't a big gap between my video uploads. But definitely hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss those, and like I said, I'm going to do a full report when we get back of how it all went. I will see you guys in a few days with another normal non-Disney or travel related video. Bye guys.